We served for 3 years as college career minister at what is today Christ Church in the Valley. Had a great ministry there and loved it. Several people went into the ministry from that class. Worked with Ron Keller and Gary Davis, who were wonderful mentors to us. Did a church plant in Bishop, California. And that's where I kind of got my feet into preaching and planning and all those kind of things. It was a small town. It was a small church. So some of what was said earlier, we track with. Then I was 3 years as Minister of Education at Phoenix First Christian under Dr. Boyce, William Boyce, and then 37 years at what was Rowland Heights First Christian, and then became Diamond Canyon when we relocated. And to be honest, we've experienced burnout, made mistakes of boundaries. We haven't been all that spiritual. We've suffered some traumas, and but you know what? We have lasted and loved ministry, loved the church, loved God, loved the people, and as Dr. Derry said yesterday, no regrets. Not everything went perfect, but no regrets. We're so glad, and what Carl said earlier this morning, we are so glad we went in ministry. I think security is way overrated. It really is. I mean, it really is. People get all tied up in insecure, not doing some great things, that they kind of get trapped into just doing mediocre things. And I do think that God has given us the privilege and the opportunity to change lives, to speak into people, to help marriages, help change the world, help send people out. So I'm really glad. And I want Deidre to step in anytime. She has a time at the end where she's going to tell the real truth, but she'll step in and anytime you want to, Deidre. Okay. There is, I think one of the things that's really needed in ministry to last is balance. That you've got to be the engineer of your life, and you've got to keep balance. There's this book, Resilient Ministry, which is just one book, but it's been very, very helpful among many. But this has been a good one because it's a study of hundreds of pastors who have survived and thrived in ministry. They built good churches, healthy churches. They've lasted, and they're glad they went into the ministry. And that's how they have survived. And they give 5 areas that they say have to happen if you're going to survive and thrive. And so spiritual formation, I'll say a word. This is how I've organized what I'm going to share today. Spiritual formation, self-care is the second one, and that's like physical, mental, emotional, and then emotional intelligence and cultural intelligence, very important. Exactly what President Trump did not do yesterday, and hurt a lot of our missionaries and on our mission field. And then marriage and family, and then leadership and management. So I'm going to just kind of go through those because those are things. What I did was I first wrote out what I felt, how we got through and how we liked it and what we enjoyed. And then I kind of organized it around those themes. So first, spiritual formation. I love worship. I love worship. Good worship, just you come out with a different perspective. You're lifted up. I love it being with the people. Good worship is we need it. I need it. And that's one of the things that I think has kept me strong spiritually is just worshiping with the people, either wherever it is, a big church, little church, in a group of Africans in Africa that just gathered after work to sing songs or whatever it is, but it just fires me up. Worship does. And that's been a big part. Reading the Bible. I'm pretty consistent in reading the Bible. Usually like 2 chapters a day just for myself in order consecutively. I keep track of it just so I don't forget where I was. I love reading the scripture and studying the scripture. That's definitely been a help to me. I love hearing good sermons. I thought yesterday, I got fired up by everything I heard. They weren't really totally sermons, but they were kind of sermons. They were kind of sermons. And I love that kind of stuff. A good sermon just makes me think, and kind of directs my path in good areas. And so that I love hearing that. I love the people. People have been such a blessing to Deidre and I. Once we've met, all kinds of people, and they keep me fired up. I retired from Diamond Canyon in April, so we haven't really gone back more than a couple times. So that the new pastor, who was actually both he and his wife went into ministry many years ago from Diamond Canyon, but now he's the pastor. But we want to give him. We don't want people just coming to me, because after you're there 37 years. People could. Like, when Ben Merrill left Eastside, boom, he's out of there. I think he gave like 30 days notice or something, and boom, that's the last of him. Because when you've been a pastor somewhere, they're going to keep coming to you. So we wanted to give Guy and Kathy, the best chance they had. So everybody, but I miss those people. I do. I miss those people. All kinds of people. I miss those people. We have had some contacts. We've still had some contacts with some, but people fire me up. I mean, having the people there worshiping and wanting to serve, and their enthusiasm, it helps me spiritually. Jesus said, whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds his life loses it. Whoever loses his life, I say, finds it. I found that really to be true. And then that passage where Jesus talks about, whatever you give up, you're going to get, 100 times more. Mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters. It really is true, and ministry gives you that. Most professions you don't get that, and we get that. All different kinds of people, and they become our family. So that's what's kept me fired up spiritually. Those are the things that have kept me, on fire and excited to serve God and to love God. I'd say those are the main things. And self-care, let's talk about self-care. And that includes physical, mental, emotional. I exercise regularly. I think exercise is important. I really do. I think you need some kind of exercise, and you need to get outdoors. You need to get outdoors some.
He still has the same exercise book he started at age 13.
And I just kept it up.
I probably had 100 different books since then, but he keeps track of his exercise.
Every set, yeah.
So he does, yeah.
Because I don't want to miss. I don't want to stop now,
Or he would do ahead before vacation,
Yeah.
whole business.
To catch up if I was going overseas or something. Because I really do think exercise is important. Do you do this too?
Well, I do too, but I don't have a book like he does.
So I'm more.
I can't even find the book probably.
Yeah. But I think Paul says spiritual exercise is important, but also he says there's physical exercises with some value, and it really is. I think better. I feel if I exercise, all of a sudden I feel better in that day that I've done something, that has made me. If I go outdoors, all the better. Whenever I go out to lunch, I try to sit outdoors. If you're stuck at your desk all day, just being outdoors is kind of refreshing. I try to eat pretty good, not as good as I should.
Now I'm seeing, now that he's home, so I see what he really eats for lunch.
And I do love ice cream and milkshakes.
He used to go out with the staff, and
hamburgers.
sometimes they send me pictures when I get work, of what they're having.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ann. You take a picture as you send it to me. But I do eat fairly well. I eat 3 meals, not perfect, but I think keeping a healthy body is important as best you can. Not everybody has a healthy body. Some people, Deidre was laid up in a hospital bed for a couple of years and couldn't exercise, But if you have the ability to exercise, I'd say it's going to help the way you think and the way you feel. I think mental, I've always wanted to get the best schooling I could. I've always loved, well, I shouldn't say that. From college on, I've been a good student and have enjoyed studying. Graduate school, I've had lots and lots of opportunities. Reading, I like to read. I love to read. Both of us love to read. I love to read novels, tons of novels. Some of them are just escape novels. Some of them teach me about countries, about people. I love novels. I love reading challenging books too, on ministry, on theological issues, on politics. I love newspapers. I love keeping up on newspapers. I love keeping up on what's happening in the world, local, national, world. I love those newspapers. They give you a world perspective. that lets you know, even in countries I've never been to, but some of the, they keep you informed of what's happening. And I just love that. I love going to all the conferences, and like yesterday, I grew yesterday. You know, I did. I thought that was great. I loved it. You know, and hearing all of them, hearing Gene and Mike Goldworthy and Carl. I talked to Jay. I didn't get to be for Jason, but I know Jason. He's from our church. He's from our church. He's one of the guys who went out in ministry. And so those kind of experiences, take them. And there's a lot more than you think. Like, we live in Claremont, and the Claremont colleges, they have all kinds of free stuff that anyone can go to. We went to this one thing that was at Harvey Mudd that we just read in the paper, and so called them up and went, made reservations. Lo and behold, it's they had appetizers, and then they had this sit-down dinner with there's about 50 people. Oh, this is free. This is free. They have a first-class dinner, and then they had, I forget who it was now, but someone speaking about, I can't remember if it was world affairs or economics or whatever. There's a world-class someone. This is free. And there's tons of those things. And I'm sure across the street, Hope has some of those things as well. But there's lots of things to widen. I have the philosophy that, you know, the wider your experience, the greater your vision. And I really think that's true. You know, the more you learn about this world, I think the more God will kind of open up your vision. So, you know, we love meeting interesting, involved people. Okay, on emotional, Deidre and I have gone to counseling many times. Actually, we went yesterday for some counseling because we have an issue with our daughter, one of our daughters, and we want to know how best to handle it. You know, and I would say, you know, emotional. I'd say, you know, you would profit by going to counselors when it's necessary. You know, and that's what we have done. It's helped us. When we were in Bishop, I just started this church. We've been there about a year. Deidre's dad came down with Parkinson's, and Deidre loved her dad. And Deidre's mom, when he came down with Parkinson's, she just kind of, I can't take it. But you can imagine the severe Parkinson's, and just kind of just almost like collapsed. And so all the relatives called Deidre. Deidre, we're 300 miles away. Deidre, you got to move home. You got to move home. You got to take care of your dad. Deidre's pulled both ways. You know, what do? My husband's, we're starting a church here. My dad's, you know, going down the tube so quick. My mom just can't handle it. That's all there is. So we went to a counselor at Fuller, and he said, you know, he helped us sort out. And Deidre's first responsibility was for us, but still to help out at home, but to remain up in Bishop, because she couldn't move home for 6 months. You know, so she stayed with her. Lo and behold, we went and talked to her mom. Well, we were supportive, but her mom stepped up like you couldn't believe. It was the best years of her life. She helped out in the VA hospital to not only her husband, but to others. She started investing money, made more money investing than her husband had made the whole of his life, just about. And she started painting the house inside. I mean, she was about 75 or 80 and started painting the house, you know, and taking doors off and refinishing them. And she stepped up. But having a counselor, if Deidre had moved home, I would have flopped. I would have flopped, you know, and so seeking a counselor. Okay. And for guys, here's one thing I'll say for you for emotional health. Listen to your wife. I think most of our wives are far more perceptive than we are in many ways, and can give us good emotional intelligence that maybe we don't have. They see it a little differently. And I think Deidre has saved me from many, many faux pas. And I still make plenty, but she has saved me from many, many faux pas.
Try to get his eye when he's preaching.
I've gotten so many kicks under the table. Yeah, she'll get my eye. She lets me know. Yeah, better move on, Jim. So, okay. Emotional and cultural intelligence. We have to have that in our world. You can read about it, and I think that's very helpful. There's lots of good books on it and enjoying it. But Deidre and I really have have come to really enjoy relationships and experiences with different kinds of people. We love that. We seek that out. We enjoy it. At Diamond Canyon, we love to have people who could, who would speak, and it wasn't the kind of English I speak. And there'd be some brokenness to it, but it had a Kenya. It was from Kenya, or the Philippines, or Ethiopia. You know, we got to meet people. One of our dear friends from Ethiopia spent time in prison for the Lord. His whole family came here as a refugee, went to Hope, was shaking almost with the pressure because he worked for World Vision and when the communists came in. How many churches get that experience? And when he would give a devotion or something, you had to kind of lean in to really listen and understand. It's worth it. It's worth it. You know, you get to get a perspective that most of us never get. We've gone on lots of mission trips. Now I go on about 2 mission trips a year. I love that. I love taking our teams. We're going in Cambodia this summer again because I love Cambodia. We go to a certain ministry over there. We'll bring 15, 20 people every time from the church. You know, 15, 20 people. They meet people. They have a great time. It's their vacation. They pay for it. It's their vacation. But you know what? They do some good and they meet people. They come back with a wider perspective of what God's doing around the world. It's helped the church. It's helped our church, and it's been a blessing. They've made friends both with the missionaries and with the people. One of the things that has been, I think, I don't know why this doesn't really fit here, but it's brought joy to us, is we've had 35 to 40 young people who have gone into ministry or missions and are still there. You know, and that's, we keep track, you know, of them and visit. We love them. You know, and we want to support them, and we're so proud and glad that they have gone into ministry. And I really emphasize what John Derry and what was said this morning in our devotion, that having those young people go in ministry, you know, they could have gone into other things. They could have gone into other things, you know, and done well, done very well. But ministry really does give you experiences, and it's hard, but man, you know, no regrets. You know, people will be glad they gave their life for the Lord. They really will. And so you're doing them a favor by challenging them to go into ministry. But okay, marriage and family. I think to survive and thrive in ministry, you need a good marriage. You know, 90%, 95%. And there's people, I know Andy Stanley's dad and mom had conflicts, had lots of problems. I think she had some issues, and, you know, and he thrived definitely and survived. But I do think if you want to really enjoy ministry, is to have a good partnership in marriage. And Deidre and I have equally both loved marriage. Deidre has worked full-time as a teacher and school administrator, wherever we went. There's only been a few years in our marriage she hasn't worked full-time. She worked for the county of Orange and the county of San Bernardino, training principals and teachers and putting on all kinds of programs and bringing in speakers and evaluating. And she's worked full-time. That has helped us financially. Retirement, health benefits helped us, but that's not all. It also has given us a different arena. It's given Deidre and me too, because we've gone to dinner with her friends. I've been and met them, and it's given us a different arena than the church. And what that does is when things go bad at the church, not everything is all tied up like, oh, woe is me, the whole world's going down the tubes, because maybe Deidre's is doing well. And then maybe when Deidre's job is going hard, having a hard time, things are going good at the church, you know? And so it gives a different arena for your perspective. It's sort of like an alternate universe. That you have the church universe, and then you have Deidre's career and her friends there, and what she does there. And I've gotten to know some of those people, and it's kind of given like two things. Deidre's always been involved in the church, heavily involved in the church, always been supportive of me, She headed up the missions committee for 10 or 15 years at Diamond Canyon, did everything, worked in the nursery, you name it, she did it. And but that's been I want to, I mean, I can't, you do what you want, but I would encourage your wives, if that's you, there's some good benefits to having your wife have a career. It really is, when you're in ministry, or your husband having a career. There's some good benefits. I'm sure there's some hardships about that too. But I can tell you, I'm retired now. I don't think I could have retired, without the income from Deidre's pension. I don't know if I could. And it's been a blessing along the way to us as well. Deidre and I have always given each other the freedom and encouraged each other to be the best we could be. She has been a real challenger, spiritual challenger to me, and I have to her. I think one of the things that's helped us in ministry is we have an incredibly strong, adventurous spirit. Security is overrated. We have always entered life with zest and faith, and we knew that if we did our best to follow God, that God would take care of us. And I'll give you some examples. One, going to seminary. Deidre didn't have a job; she finally got one. But we went to seminary. When I graduated from seminary, I had two church opportunities. The church I was in, Rowland Heights, Diamond Canyon. They called me when I was out of seminary, but we had kind of got involved with a small group in Bishop, and their highest offering for the month was about $640. That was more then, but it wasn't much. But they promised me a salary of $800 a month, which wasn't much. It wasn't as much as Rowland Heights was willing, but we thought, wow, we'll never have a chance to serve in a mountain town, a little town, again, probably, and there'll probably be other churches, like medium size and larger that will have opportunity. Let's take the Bishop one. We did it. Deidre didn't have a job. We went there. She worked at Penny's for a couple months. They got a job in the school. Then we got burned out. That's where we got burned out and started a small church. But it was a very good experience as well. But by the end of that, we felt like, I don't know if we were totally burnt out, but we just felt like we need a break. We need a break. Thought about going into the military chaplaincy. That didn't quite feel like us. Thought about some other churches. We thought we need a break. We need a break. So this wouldn't have been a break for most people, but I went to law school in Oregon, Northwest, Lewis and Clark. Anyone, Lewis and Clark College Center, Oregon, know Lewis and Clark. Went to law school there, and it wasn't a break for most people. I loved it. For me, I didn't have to worry about offerings. I didn't have to worry about attendance. All I had to do was sit there and take notes and started to teach at Beaverton Christian Church to a wonderful adult group. And boy, did they, I helped them. Did they ever help me? Did they ever help me? They loved us. We had great social times, no worries about, finances in the church or anything like that. We enjoyed the church, but it rebuilt us. And then Dr. Boyce called me and said, come back down. So I took a year of leave absence and a second year. And then we just knew, that was a break for us. But came back in the ministry. So glad we did. Coming to Rowland Heights was definitely, and each of these times, Deidre has to change jobs and didn't always have a job. Missions and travel. We have traveled to so many countries now that God opened up that. We never would have had that opportunity, except for ministry. And then when I was at the church 20 years, they gave me a sabbatical. They said, you can take a sabbatical. And so thought about what to do. I thought about, I wanted to do something. So I took a couple classes at Claremont with Peter Drucker. He was getting old. Wow. I got to meet with Peter Drucker. There's about this class this size. And you know what? We hit it off. And we became friends. And Peter Drucker was a real asset to my life. Because I thought about maybe I'll get an MBA. Maybe that would be good to do. But that didn't. But I took two courses from him. One was on the nonprofit organization, and the other one was on, finding and fulfilling what God wants you to do in life, although the word God wasn't there, but it was like, who you are and where you're going. And then I thought, no, I don't want an MBA though. I applied to Harvard Divinity School. Guess who wrote a letter for me? Who never writes a letter? Guess who wrote a letter for me? Peter Drucker. Handwritten letter. Right. Let me tell you, Harvard has to let you in. And they did. And Once you're at Harvard, in any of the graduate schools, you can take classes in any of the graduate schools. Once you're admitted to one, you can take classes in all of them. So I took half my classes at the Kennedy School of Government and then half in the Divinity School. Spent a year and a half there. Church paid my salary, but they didn't pay for the house. They didn't pay for the tuition. It cost us about $80,000 plus out of our own money, but it was worth it. Deidre said, well, let's go for it. Let's go for it. She came back there every 6 weeks. I came home every 3 weeks, every 6 weeks. So every 3 weeks we spent, time together. Our daughters came back there, had a wonderful, I had to pinch myself every day, and that opened up other avenues and other doors and things like that. That's the way we kind of have lived life, is that, if there's an opportunity and it's costly and there's a risk to it, if God wants us to do it, let's do it. And that's kind of like, we've never been afraid to try new things, move new places, or any of those kind of things. We've always valued getting a good preparation in both careers. Deidre also went on. Here's on our marriage. Here's what we've done to cultivate a good relationship. At least once a quarter, we get away. We've always done that. Once a quarter to go, maybe it's just one night. When we lived in Diamond Bar, it was often just to go to Newport, stay in a hotel, just the two of us, go out to a nice restaurant, have a nice time, and once a quarter, we've always done that. We've always gone on like a date.
It was especially important, I think, when the kids were young, when the crazy times.
Yeah, you need the kids at home. Yeah. And our girls loved it because we had some nice babysitters that they loved.
Jumping on the couch,
They loved it when we were gone. But doing that once a quarter, cultivate, keeping the romance and the enjoyment, and we did some of our best thinking, then, and then also we go out on a date at least three times a month. Go out, maybe four, but at least three. Sometimes it gets busy. We'd always do that. We always went on a family vacation. We were never too busy, or the church was never in such bad shape or needed us so much or anything like that stopped us from having a family vacation. We always went on a 1 week or a 2 week camping. We'd go camping at Bass Lake every year. The girls loved it. We always look forward. You have to go to Bass Lake. Because we had so many good memories there, so many good things. So those are some things that helped us in our marriage. I'll just say a couple words and with leadership and management. Conferences like this can help. They really can. And I valued Rick Warren and Bill Hybels and Andy Stanley. Those are some good people to learn from. And there's lots of others. I think as a pastor, if you're going to last, you have to develop a good staff team. And you have to have a staff that you enjoy working with. Have to be some people on staff that you really like, you laugh, you can let your hair down, you can joke, you can make fun of, they can make fun of you, and they can also tell you if you've done something, well, you better go back and straighten that out. And I do think structure. Now, I think most of our churches have better structure than they did when, like 30, 40 years ago. But structure makes a big difference in building happiness in a church. Many of our churches used to have a structure, and this is what we inherited when we came to Rowland Heights. They had a board structure where there were elders, there were deacons, and they all came together, but the Sunday school superintendent and anyone else who wanted to complain could come to this, the meeting once a month or so. And that's a prescription for disaster. That's a prescription for arguments and conflicts. So gradually, we changed. But I think to be happy in a church, you have to have a team where the pastor is the leader. And I know there's dangers to that, but I do believe that the happiest and best churches are the places where, I think all the elders have to be vetted by the pastor. If there's anyone who's on the eldership who feels like, they are against you, they shouldn't be there. They should not be there. You shouldn't have opponents on the elders. Doesn't mean they agree with you, and I think elders are required to. I think what elders do is guarantee the integrity of the church. They take the time and trouble to look at the finances and to understand the finances, and they guarantee to the people, we're on target. We are spending money right. No one's wasting money. No one's pilfering. Everything's accounted for. They guarantee that to the church. They guarantee the moral strength of the church. That they, if there's something going wrong in the pastor's life or other staff life, it's hard for elders to do it. They're going to take heat, no matter, even if they do the right thing. They're going to take a lot of heat because the people won't understand. But they're the ones who guarantee the moral integrity, and they're the ones that guarantee the spiritual integrity. That if the pastor starts going off on some weird tangent or something for an extended period of time, really it's up to the elders to be to guarantee the spiritual integrity of the church too, and they're to give counsel, very good counsel. But I do believe the pastor is to lead. In fact, I think that if you're the pastor of a church, you need to see yourself as God's given you that position for a time, and He expects you to do what He wants to happen in that church. And He holds you accountable. And whatever it takes to do, you've got to do it. And in the realm of what's moral and everything and ethical. You've got to do it. He holds you. You can't make an excuse. Well, the elders, they always were against me, and no crying. God holds you accountable. Kind of like what Paul says to Timothy, right? Don't anyone look down on your youth. That you're the leader. So lead. And he wants to do that. I thought, that model that Gene gave yesterday of the retreat. That's how, when I inherited this, we had negative people up the gazoo. And so here's what I did. The elders were as much against me as they were for me. And so here's what I did. This is like my first year. I've been there about a year. I called, without even asking the elders, I said, I want to have a leadership training event. And I want us to go to the mountains. And we went to this, I'd arranged for this little camp. And everyone has to pay their own way. And I'm going to struck. Well, guess who comes? It was open to anybody. The elders who are against me, only one of them came. Well, he was actually a deacon. So the elders who were against me didn't come. They didn't want to listen to me for a weekend. And I recruited people who were positive in the church, who were in a position of leadership, and I knew these are potential great leaders. And so I recruited them and told them and twisted their arms, whatever it took to get them there. Went to that retreat. Started with what does the Bible say about the church? And I used the book of Acts, Acts 2. And I said, here's what God wants the church to look like. And so then after that evening, at the end of the evening, I said, let's take a vote. Do we want, at the time it was Roland Heights, do we want a First Christian to be a church like that? Do we want to grow? Everybody said, yes, we want it, And so I said, okay, tomorrow I'm going to tell you how we can do that. So on Saturday, I told them how they all came back, and all of a sudden there's this group that is enthusiastic, that is looking forward, that is positive, that are all on one team. And then the one negative guy who came on that retreat in the next board meeting was the one who said, who motioned, we need to expand our parking lot. And he said, because he knew this is the way it's going, and he wanted to be on board. From that point on, we began to grow. We began to working, with a more pastor-led team. Because I think you have to do that.
Are you getting to your end?
Okay. I'm not really, but you better. Okay, I'll go ahead.
You sure? No, you can finish up. I thought once he gets preaching, though. Yeah, leave me 1 second. No, I'm sorry. That's all right. Okay, why don't you say that stuff quick and then.
Okay, here's some. I think you have to engineer good experiences in your life. No one's going to do it for you. You have to do it. Like, here's what we've done. I started leading backpacking trips with the college age group 37 years ago. I've made 37 trips. Every year I met those guys that then adults would come to. We backpacked for a week. Man, we made good friends. They are on my team. And we're on team together. They knew me in ways, that people didn't always get to know me. Mission and vision trips to Kenya, Tanzania, Burundi, the Philippines, Cambodia. I taught for APU in Ghana and Ukraine. I taught for HIU, all that. Love it. You got to work those things in. I've climbed Kilimanjaro 4 times, and I lead trips. I'm leading one this summer to make money for missions, to raise money for missions. That people have to pay their own way, but then they have to get sponsors. We raised $500,000, for missions. For different missions. So, but I love doing that. I love staff retreats. What he said twice a year, we've always done that. We always made ours a little shorter, but I love the way Gene did that. That's a model for a small church or a big church. That works. You start building that team, building that enthusiasm, building that forward looking. We've always had lots of parties and dinners. Peter and I have been able to be ourselves in ministry too. We made a lot of mistakes, But after 37 years, there's nothing to hide. I don't think you have to hide much. I don't think you have to hide much. I think you can be yourself and don't have to worry. Okay, dude, there's more things, but that's
Okay. I'm not quite sure what time we end,
Yeah.
right? I just,
probably pretty cool.
okay. And then I usually, just so you know, in his sermons, I don't get to interrupt or anything. So. but I just know once he gets going and everything.
Take 10 minutes.
Okay. I love being a minister's wife, probably 90% of the time anyway, that we were married. It was best getting to know the people and being in their lives and getting to serve with them. But I did want my own life, and I had a job as a teacher at the district and county level. And then later I started going, after I retired 5 years ago, I've been consulting for San Bernardino County Schools, and I went to Fuller Seminary in intercultural studies. But I did want some privacy, and you have to have freedom to be yourself too. But you have to have some privacy. I had friends at work, and some that I still have, even though we consulted together. But a lot of my friends were through the church and missions, and we're still in close contact with a lot of missionaries that we visited. Had lunch, dinner with them just last week. That we know. Some of the I also. Back in the day when we first started, it seems like a long time ago, but 37 years ago, I worked full time. And back then, with a lot of ministers' wives, did not work full time. And so that was a little bit of a transition. They wanted me, I was off for that year because our daughter had been born, but they wanted me to be a part of like the sewing circle type thing. I can't even thread a needle hardly, and I thought, oh wow, this is gonna be and when we went to Bishop, they wanted me to put something in the cookbook. I had to call grandma, put something in the cookbook. Anyway, but kind of gives you an idea. But so I was part of, I really loved the older women, but it wasn't my thing, you know what I mean, to be like in the sewing circle kind of thing. But I loved them. And they, after a while, they figured, okay, Deidre's working. And so they, that kind of was okay. And then, and as the years went on, especially at Diamond Canyon, like Jim said, the first couple of years were a couple rocky, with some negative people. But then it kind of changed. And really, everyone was very welcoming and not judgmental. And I love that. We kind of wanted a church that way. We didn't want a church that was judgmental, that we wanted a church that welcomed everybody in, and that, different nationalities. That's always been, the hallmark of the church. And I think, so we love that. Like sometimes I change my hair from brown to blonde to red. They kind of laugh. I'd come in late sometimes. They laugh, But anyway, so Jim wouldn't laugh as much. But
one time Leroy Lawson was speaking at our church, and Deidre came in late, and all the people. He goes, "Oh, Deidre, nice to have you."
Well, anyway, but after a while, they just kind of like, oh yeah. Anyway, and like when we were in Bishop, I played the piano because, in a smaller church, there are more things kind of required of you. And it's not just required of you, they're necessary. You know what I mean? Like if there's nobody play the piano but you have to really be careful, I think, in a smaller church, not to get totally too much. You know what I mean? Because otherwise it can be very overwhelming. I remember, playing the piano, and I think somebody was back in the nursery, but I didn't have children then, but I could see the nursery kind of back there. You're kind of playing the piano and thinking about the nursery. Well, right then, there's too much going on. Something's not right. So you have to kind of say, whoa, this is my limit. You know what I mean? I can't be in charge of all those things. And so, that was just a little harder. And because I'm more of a city person, it was a little harder for me in a remote area. Also, one thing I did when we were first married and we were at the first church where he was preaching, that was not a good idea. He'd have his sermon laying around on Saturday or something. I'd look at it and I'd say, oh, you sure you're going to say that? I found that is not a good idea. Because you knew how the positions of some of the people in the church, you know what I mean? Oh, no. Anyway, and so I found after a while it was better for me to have my job, Jim to have his job, and you know what I mean? And me not try to give advice on those things, you know? And for the most part, he's kept the church things, you know what I mean? You know, that he needed to deal with and all. I chose to be involved, not as much as Jim, but as much as I could with working in children and still keep my sanity. But sometimes I had to say, and especially when the kids were little, because we had morning and night service back in the day, and I'd have to say, like, I cannot do one more thing and still keep my sanity. You know what I mean? Because you get to that point where I remember sitting in the back of church in the foyer working on my lesson plans, you know, for the next day when I was a teacher on Sunday night. Something's wrong with this picture here, you know? And so later I started going out Sunday afternoon to work on things. But, you know, sometimes you just get to the point where you're balancing, and especially with young children, you're balancing so many things. And you really need to give your spouse the freedom, you know what I mean? Not to be there for every single thing, even though they would like you to be there, even though it'd be fun, whatever. But sometimes you just can't do it, you know? Because I found that I had to be ready to go to school on Monday or it was going to be a bad week, you know? And like I remember even like a women's retreat, which is a great thing, but a women's retreat for me when I was working with young kids was a crisis because you leave Friday right after work, which means you've got to have this all arranged Thursday or Wednesday. And then you had to have everything taken care of for the kids. And you get back Saturday night or Sunday. Well, then that's when you do all the, you know, the grocery shopping, taking care of all the kid problems, you know, getting yourself ready. And so things like that were kind of a challenge. And I remember just one time, there was one that was going to be near one of the girls' birthdays. And we had one lady that was a little pushy, really wanted me to be there. And I think I went, but I remember thinking, this is, you know, there are some times where you kind of get into those situations. For the most part, though, I tried to have, you know, a little bit of my boundaries too. You can't always, but, you know, I tried as much as possible. I really loved missions and mission trips, and I was mission chair for 15 years, went on many mission trips. And sometimes we had to put on a credit card for a while. Africa 5 or 10 times, Cambodia, Ukraine, Philippines. I loved working with young adults, going on mission trips with them and taking them to ICOM several times. That's an intercultural missions conference. And sometimes I'd go with Jim and sometimes without. Loved all the young people through the years, at least 30 who went into ministry, like Jim said, from Diamond Canyon. And we try to keep in touch as much as we can with them. And also try to remind them, you know, we talked to just one recently who's at a church, you know, to really take time to not get overwhelmed, and to take some time off, especially if churches are going through a challenging time, you especially need to take your day off. Doing fun, we like to get away, don't always say yes, keep your priorities as much as possible, give yourself a break. Don't sign up for a lifetime responsibility teaching Sunday school. I mean, I grew up in a small church where one lady taught Sunday school for like life, you know? It's like, it was like, wow. I thought, no, I don't think so. You know, it's like, oh, God. And so, you know, you don't have to do it all. And, you know, as much as you can, go with what your gifts are. Sometimes it's not possible. There's a crisis. Somebody has to watch the nursery or somebody has to take care of something. But as much as you can, try to go with what your gifts are. And I learned it perspectives. I'm not sure if I say this right, missions training, but God is already there. We're working with him, but it's not on us to solve everything. Like people on the mission field, we can't take a day off. We've got all these problems in the church. You know, God's already there working. We work alongside with God, but we can't take everything on and expect ourselves to do it all. And Jim is an expert on this. He has his schedule and he takes time, but just saying, you know, I have something already scheduled at that time, or put things on your calendar so that you have time for yourself. Now we're helping down at the church in Echo Park, our Diamond Canyon's church plant, and still able to work with young adults down there and mentoring some, doing some marriage counseling. and some mentoring, and I took some of those kids to ICOM this year too. And so, but just that's a little bit of, like I said, 90% was all good, you know, and yeah.
One maybe closing thing. Here's what I found. It's easier being a pastor in a larger church than a smaller church. In a larger church, you have a lot more freedom. Not everyone's bugging you to do this or do that. You have a lot more, you can gravitate more to your gifts, and they much more let you do what you want to do. And it's much easier. Small church pastoring is hard. I said yes too many times in a smaller church because I was worried about what people expected.
Well, also when we first came to church, to Diamond Canyon, people wanted him to always go out and have a meeting on everything. And sometimes he was gone, like, you know, this was when the kids were little and you're kind of in the hair pulling stage, you know what I mean? The mom, and Jim would be gone like 4 or 5 nights. It's like, too many. After a while, it's like, cut, you know what I mean? This isn't working, you know? It's just too much. Okay.
Let's give them.